Welcome to the Red Yeti Aviation Private Pilot Ground Course. In this course, we're going to be teaching you everything you need to know to pass the FAA written exam and to get you ready for the private pilot check ride. In today's video, we'll be talking about the four forces that act on an aircraft while it's in flight. And this lesson might not seem that important, but it is. Pilots need to understand aerodynamics because it can give you a good foundation for your flight training. If you can understand this stuff, it's going to be a lot easier to control the airplane when you start your actual flight lessons. Plus, there could be questions about this stuff on the FAA written exam, so let's dive in and talk about these four forces that affect an airplane in flight. These forces are lift, weight, thrust, and drag. Let's talk about lift first. This is the upward force that picks the aircraft up and away from the ground, and the wings of an airplane create lift by using relative wind and the shape of the wing. Now, I don't want to get too technical, but wing shape is very important for an airplane to produce lift. And if we look at the cross section of a wing, this profile view is what we call an airfoil. We're going to go into a lot more detail about that in the next lesson, so I don't want to spend too much time on that at the moment. But this is what allows our wings to create lift. Next, we have the weight of our aircraft, and weight is a force that's caused by the stuff in and on our airplane. Weight is a combination of all the people, fuel, cargo, baggage, and equipment on board the aircraft, and it includes the weight of the aircraft itself. This is everything, including your mom if she happens to be on board the aircraft. Now, weight directly opposes lift, and this force pulls down through the center of gravity. A lot of pilots call this CG because it makes us sound way cooler. And we'll be talking more about CG and aircraft weight and balance in an upcoming video. But for now, I just want you to know that the CG is essentially where the average weight of your aircraft is centered. And this includes everything on board. If you are able to hang an airplane by a rope or by a string, and you are able to place the CG directly beneath that, the aircraft would balance perfectly. Keep in mind, this isn't actually how we balance an airplane, but I'll go into a lot more detail on that really soon. Now, if you're taking notes, this is something I want you to write down. Not only could this come up on the written exam, but it's the fundamental principle that's going to help you understand how to control the airplane. In steady, unaccelerated flight, lift and weight will be equal. Remember that. I'll come back to that in a minute, but for now, let's move on and talk about thrust. Thrust is the force that pushes our airplane forward through the air, and in our training airplane, this is created by the engine and propeller. Something important to remember about thrust is that in order for the propeller to push the airplane forward through the air, it must overcome drag that wants to hold our airplane back. And I'll draw this out as an arrow pointing back, but in reality, this drag just tries to keep the aircraft from moving forward. So we have to overcome drag to get the airplane to move forward through the air. Let's talk a little bit more about this drag. I personally think that drag is one of the most important topics when it comes to understanding how to control an airplane. And there are two main types of drag that a pilot should know about: parasite drag and induced drag. If you stick your hand out of the window of a moving vehicle, what happens? Unless your arm hits a mailbox, the wind just pulls your hand back, doesn't it?
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
That's such a classic. But anyway, when we drive with our arm out of the window, wind pulls our hand back, and the faster we drive, the more this air pulls back on our arm. This is what we call parasite drag, and as airspeed increases, parasite drag increases because there's more air hitting the stuff that sticks out on your airplane. In fact, take a look at this chart. Notice how parasite drag dramatically increases the faster you move. This is why you're not going to be able to fly super fast in your training aircraft. It's designed with a lot of surfaces to make it more stable, which is good for training, but it also keeps us from moving too fast. Before we move on and talk about the other type of drag, I do want to mention that there are actually three different types of parasite drag. The first one is something called form drag, and form drag is caused by the shape of the aircraft. For example, take a look at this little toy airplane. Do you think air is going to flow smoothly around this or not? Probably not, right? So if an aircraft isn't designed well and it doesn't have smooth transitions, it's going to get a lot of form drag. Interference drag is another type of parasite drag, and this one can be a little bit confusing, but interference drag occurs when different streams of airflow create small pockets of turbulent air in different spots on the aircraft's surface. And this turbulence actually keeps the air from flowing smoothly over the surface of the aircraft. Last but not least, we have skin friction drag. This is caused by the rough surface of the aircraft. This might not make much sense, but if we could zoom in and look at the skin of the aircraft with a microscope, what you'd notice is that the skin is not actually as smooth as it looks. These microscopically rough spots can actually reduce the speed of our aircraft, and this is why we paint or polish the exterior surfaces of an aircraft. This reduces skin friction drag, but is never completely eliminated. Something kind of interesting is that people who get their planes repainted often notice that the airplane becomes capable of flying a few knots faster. Okay, those are all the types of parasite drag. Now let's talk about induced drag. Induced drag is created as a direct byproduct of lift, and I'll go into a lot more detail on that in the next lesson. But basically, this is caused because of the wing design. Our wings are designed to allow airflow over the upper and lower surfaces of the wing to create lift. But this also creates drag as well. Actually, induced drag is really weird to me, and this is something that should interest you. As airspeed increases, the wing is able to produce a lot more lift at reduced angles of attack, and this causes induced drag to decrease as we speed up. Now check this out. When we place both of these types of drag on a chart, you'll notice that parasite drag increases exponentially as we increase our airspeed, but induced drag increases exponentially as we slow down. This is very important to know about because every airplane in existence has a magical airspeed that you can fly, which allows you to put the least amount of drag possible on the aircraft. And a lot of airspeeds you're going to be flying from now on are directly related to this airspeed. This is what we call the lift to drag ratio, or LD max. And once again, this is why I think that drag is one of the most important things to study as a pilot in order to understand how to control the airplane. Now, you might be wondering why we call this the lift to drag ratio and not the thrust to drag ratio. Well, just like lift and weight, in steady, unaccelerated flight, thrust and drag are equal. But all these forces are directly related to each other, and we're going to be talking about that a lot throughout this entire series.
You're probably wondering why the heck we're learning about aerodynamics today. You just want to get into the plane and start flying. But if you understand this concept, it's going to help you understand how to control the aircraft. Anytime I make an adjustment to any one of these forces, it's going to cause a change in one of the other forces. Now, we said that during steady, unaccelerated flight, lift and weight are both equal. Now that I've got my airplane trimmed out for level flight, let's see what happens when I increase my airspeed by increasing my thrust. Alright, so I've got the airplane all trimmed out. I'm at 1,600 feet. Somewhere around 85 knots. Watch what happens when I just increase my thrust. Just watch what happens here. I don't have my hands on the controls, but notice the airplane's starting to climb. So thrust and weight are no longer equal. As you can see, my wings start creating more lift when we accelerate. When I increase my thrust, my lift becomes greater than my weight, and the opposite is true when I decelerate. Okay, now I'm trimmed out for level unaccelerated flight again. At this point, thrust and drag are equal, but what happens if I increase my lift? Watch my airspeed as I raise the nose of the aircraft. I'm flying at 80 knots. I'm at 2,000 feet. Okay? So watch my airspeed when I raise the nose of the airplane up. So I'm increasing lift right now. Watch my airspeed. Yeah, that's right, the airspeed is bleeding off. I made a change. Before I increased my lift, we were in steady, unaccelerated flight. When I increased my lift, I also increased my induced drag. And this caused my drag to be stronger than the thrust, which slowed down my aircraft. Understanding these basic principles is probably the most important step to learning how to control an airplane.
And now that you've watched this video, you have an understanding that most pilots don't get in their first ground lesson. If you want to continue learning how to fly, I recommend starting the playlist where you'll be picking up with lesson 2, and there you can binge watch the series.
And by the way, if you're planning on taking the FAA private pilot written exam, you're actually going to need an endorsement from an approved instructor in order to take that test, which I can give you. And that's through my premium online ground course at redyetiaviation.com. It's an interactive PDF that you can throw into ForeFlight. It has all these videos, reading assignments, and over 700 questions worth of practice tests and quizzes that'll get you ready for the written exam and for the check ride. And all that is only $50. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see ya.